morning, Chandrima. Thanks for joining us today. As we hear so much about banks collaborating with startups and figuring it out how to navigate it, you're someone who has worked with multiple local international banks and I've been running a FinTech startup for a couple of years. What do you think startups can do better and what banks can do better to make it a better working world for both of them?
It's a very interesting question because yes, indeed, I have spent over 20 years in various parts of the world working on wealth management ecosystem. And now on the other side, as a enterprise software provider, I'm pitching to the bank. So the issue between the bank and the fintech is at times, rather than seeing a fintech as a partner, the banks see them as a competitor. The benefit that a bank can have working with people like us is most of the fintech, if you see, are run by people who have made careers, not just careers, successful careers in their banking and financial services world, people like me who have jumped into the deep dark of entrepreneurship. So partnering with us, they can shortcut their product lifecycle in launching from 3 years to 3 months. Again, many financial institutions, they're not capable of managing technology stacks, which we are better at. And the third thing is, enterprise SaaS companies like us do not look at partnership as a product. We look at evolution because the banks are evolving, consumers evolving, and so are competitors. So we don't go and launch product, we look at their objective and we work with them in an agile fashion on the long term to have something that has adoption.
As you talk about evolution, I see multiple flavors in the market. So financial institutions launching their own digital wealth platform, robo-advisor, internet finance companies launching their own mobile-based wealth platforms, and your full stack wealth service providers in different parts of the world who do only wealth and that's the only business they have. We see 3 different flavors. Where do you see market converging at? Like, do you see there are different segments for which each of them work? Or do you see below a certain income level this works and then this works? So can you help us map out the landscape in terms of the 3 flavors I can see? Maybe there are more.
If you look at the disruption that has happened in financial services, there are 3 pillars. One is payments, then lending, and the third is investing. So if you look at 15 of the largest unicorn fintech, 14 of them are in payments and lending space. The last bastion that is being busted in the traditional financial services is investment. Now, in terms of investment, as you rightly said, there are 2 parts. One is B2C and the second is banks. But I also see a third aspect, which is the emergence of massive consumer platforms. That means you had a look at Didi choosing what they did. We look at telecom companies who could get into investments. Grab has done some recent announcements yesterday about expanding their product suite. So we see the emergence of massive consumer platforms. They could be from tech companies, they could be from services companies who do multiple things. Then the second thing is with the existing financial services. Now every bank, broker, insurance is looking at democratization of their services and looking at retail and multiple segments. Now in reality, the incumbents have not been able to service 43% of global wealth, which is 90% of people. And unless they use technology effectively, they will not be able to address that. So this is the part that can be busted by the B2C, or if the banks adopt technology and work with tech startups, they can take on.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge? Is it because they don't feel they can make money off it, or the cost of serving versus returns difference, or it's just prioritization? So because as you mentioned, it's 90% people. So if 10% of the top segment can actually help you capture 60%. So by Pareto principle, that's not a bad outcome.
Yeah.
10% customers giving 60% revenue. Maybe you increase it by another 5%, 10%, you will hit the 80-20. So is it just probably the fair thing for a financial institution to look at it from?
You see, if a financial institution uses technology for client adoption and doing multiple things, they already have the clients. Say, for example, we work with one of the largest banks in Thailand who have got 11 million customers. Now, if they provide a solution that has the same feel and look and utility as a Grab, as an app that works in 3 easy steps, then they can democratize wealth management. So with certain banks where the mindset of changes or the mindset of innovation, it permeates across every department, every individual, then technology can make a huge impact, both in terms of revenue, in terms of adoption of financial services, and client engagement for segments who are hard to engage. That means the millennials or the tech savvy. So technology can make that huge leapfrog.
I've always seen technology as a great equalizer, but when you see in terms of impact on the existing system, so there is a lot of debate between active and passive, ETFs, unit trust. When the market is bullish, it's all okay for passives. Do you see that actually, that conversation driving where some of the largest, I would say, richest people advocating certain directions? How do you see that panning out now that the market is in a slightly different direction than probably where it was a year ago?
I think that the discussion has got three dimensions. One is active versus passive. The second is how is the financial advice rendered? And the third component is who is rendering it and who is imparting the advice. Financial products historically have never been bought. So it never happens that an individual wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to buy a retirement plan. They're always sold. And this is why the incumbents are very important in the ecosystem. They will not disappear. The second is active versus passive. I think it's more got to do with whether you use active or passive. It is about how you risk manage the portfolios. So there have been a lot of newbies, and there also have been old fund management houses, GAM being a recent example, where they had caution out of the window and risk management of portfolio was not there, and then they did not do well for the clients. So whether you use active or passive, I think when banks or brokers or platforms, when they adopt financial technology, especially for wealth management, risk management of portfolios has to be at the core. So it is irrelevant whether they use unit trust or whether they use passive. It's a functionality of fees and functionality of cost. Then the second is how do they impart it? For high net worth individuals or for ones who are less tech savvy, it can be done via empowering their RMs. Today, a relationship manager cannot take more than 30 clients unless he or she is empowered with technology. That can be made, instead of 30, that can be made 300 with the right technology. And the fourth is, today your client is doing FX, is doing credit. How can you use the same app or the same method of reaching out to him or her to do wealth management in 3 easy steps, which can be goal-based or need-based. So in terms of adoption and in terms of the changes that we see, the past year versus what's going to happen, these are the 3 steps.
And as you see for the year forward, what would be your prediction? Like when do you expect to see first wealth unicorn? Because you mentioned like 14 out of 15. When do you see the first wealth unicorn come up from Asia? From at least ASEAN, I would say, because Chinese unicorns will be in a different zone.
We will always be there, and yeah.
ASEAN. When do you see a wealth unicorn from ASEAN coming up in next 2-3 years, or you expect it to be a more financial institution driven play in ASEAN?
I believe that the play that will succeed is the play that is driven by revenue. That means an enterprise SaaS which is able to go and install similar technology with a different UI UX or different user experience. That means a tech firm which is a wealth tech firm that can set up 6 robos in every market, in every marketplace in ASEAN. But however, ASEAN and North Asia and Europe, any place outside of US is not very different. That means the same tech stack can be reused in Middle East, in Europe, in North Asia and ASEAN. So we see emergence. There are, this is a semi-crowded space. It's not very crowded, but there are competitors. But where we see the emergence is of a few key players who are able to use the enterprise tech stack and install in multiple players in a single market. So that will be the hallmark of success, ability to handle different client segments and different types of platforms.
That was great, Chandrima.
Thank you,
We
Varun.
look forward to see the next unicorns come in the wealth space in Asia, in wealth tech space as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your time and for the amazing questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandrima.
This is Varun Mittal for MEDICI Studio.